guys, I'm back, and it's good to be back, but I had a good mini vacation. I went to Colorado and I visited some of my family. I visited my dad. He's doing well. He's older, but it's great to see him. And my stepmother, great to see her, and my daughter and her fiance. So it was an exciting time. I enjoyed being out there. I love Colorado, the beauty. That's where I grew up. The people have become kind of left-wing. It's kind of strange how the state has changed since I was a kid. It used to be a very conservative state. Now it's pretty liberal. It's kind of like Portland in the Rockies, but it's still nice, and I enjoyed being there, but it's good to be back home in Arkansas. And I looked at the topics in the news, what to talk about, and there's the trial of George Floyd, of his death. And I say death. The people on the left, which includes the mainstream media, they'll say the trial of the murder of George Floyd, like assuming he was murdered. Murder means unlawful killing, premeditated. That's what the trial is trying to determine. Was it a murder, or was it just accidental, or was it negligence, or was the police officer innocent? That's an interesting topic, and we can talk about the facts and everything, but the higher concept here we got to really understand is the battle in our society now between traditional justice and social justice. Years ago I never heard the term social justice, and the people that always said social justice, they were like communists and people that made my skin crawl. Anyone that says social justice, I'm like, watch out. These people are usually bloodthirsty because you just have justice in the traditional Western sense. And what I mean by justice is you look at the facts and you determine if the person is innocent or guilty based on the facts. You don't look at other factors. You don't look at society. You don't look at anything like that. You just try to be unbiased and try to determine if the guy's innocent or guilty and what should be the penalty. That's where you had Lady Justice with a blindfold, with the scales, trying to look at the individual case. And that's how it should be. Now, it's never been that way totally, but at least that's the ideal. That was the ideal that we were always trying to get to. And so much so, I've been on a jury before, and the lawyers, they want jury members that aren't going to be biased. Like, we don't care about your politics. Leave your politics out of it. Leave your religion out of it. Just look at the facts and apply the facts to the law. Doesn't mean you may hate the guy, but it doesn't matter if the facts show that he's innocent. And in fact, I was in a civil trial in that situation, and the kid I didn't really like. I wasn't sympathetic towards him, but I had to find him not guilty based on the facts. And he may have been guilty, but you have to just look at the facts and are you beyond a reasonable doubt? That's the standard. But then you have this new thing, and it's not really new again because the communists like to use this term. It's called social justice. It's really a primitive concept. It's not really new. It's sort of the old way that justice was done. And social justice, it just doesn't look at the facts and the individuals. It puts it in context of the overall society. And let me explain how they're different. In a traditional trial under Western civilization, especially the United States, and I'm not sure other countries, you're considered innocent until proven guilty. And you have to show the facts that, okay, the police officer did these actions that were illegal, that caused the death of George Floyd. And not only did he cause the death, if you're going for first-degree murder, you have to show, no, he was planning on this. He premeditated to kill George Floyd. He went out saying, I'm going to kill some black guy, and he did that. And that's pretty high standard. Now, you can have a lower standard that he did things that were wrong and he accidentally killed him. That's considered manslaughter, but that's kind of a lower charge. Manslaughter, for example, is if let's say you're playing on your phone texting and you look up while you're driving and then, oh shit, and you hit a pedestrian and killed him. That's not really murder because you weren't really premeditating it, but you're still responsible. You were acting in a negligent manner. So that's a situation with the trial. That's traditional justice. But then you have the social justice, and they said, well, no, you can't just consider that. You have to consider the whole society and how blacks have been mistreated by white police officers for centuries. So we got to put that into the equation. And that's why you see a really a difference of opinion how people look at this. A lot of people, they want him to be found guilty, the police officer, no matter the facts. They want him to be found guilty, and if they don't, they'll probably riot. And because if he's innocent, that's irrelevant to him, because he's a symbol. He's a symbol of the wicked, racist police that's holding down the black man for centuries. Where, of course, this police officer, he hasn't been alive for centuries, and there's no evidence that he's really racist that I heard. In fact, he's not even married to a white woman. I don't know what, is it Filipino or something? So there's nothing like that. So if you just look at the facts of the case, it's kind of simple, really. He should be found not guilty. If you're just looking in the traditional justice system, he didn't probably do anything that caused George Floyd to die, at least directly. Maybe you could argue manslaughter, because we have the autopsy report, and what killed George Floyd based on the autopsy report and the medical examiner wasn't, he didn't suffocate. You know, when the police officer had his knee on his neck, it's not like George Floyd, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. It wasn't because he was suffocating because of the knee. He was suffocating because he just piled in a bunch of fentanyl. When he got arrested, it looked like he had some fentanyl on him. George Floyd is a criminal. He's a career criminal. He's done a lot of violent crimes. He probably didn't want to go back to prison. So he said, shit, I'll take all these drugs and I'll just eat them all. And he threw all the fentanyl down his throat as something like 5 times the amount that can kill you. And that's what happens when you take that much fentanyl. Sometimes you stop to breathe. You can't breathe. And that looks like what happened in this situation. Now, you could argue maybe the police officer should have recognized that and brought him to the ambulance sooner, so maybe that was negligence. Maybe. You'd have to hear the case. But murder? There's no way for that. It could be considered murder in the traditional justice. Now, when you're dealing with social justice, how they look at it is, okay, well, maybe he didn't do anything that really caused the death of George Floyd, but he's white, he's a police officer, and George Floyd was a black guy, and blacks have always been oppressed by evil, racist cops, so we need to sacrifice this police officer, even if he wasn't guilty personally, he may have been innocent, we still need to sacrifice him for social justice. And that's why social justice is a very evil concept. It's a primitive concept. Again, it's nothing that's really new. It's primitive societies used to do this. It's an example of social justice. Let's say someone with red hair killed a member of my family, and I can't find that person. Let's say the person that did it got away. And then I said, oh, well, I can't get the guy that killed a member of my family, so I'm just going to shoot some random person that has red hair, because that's social justice. I'm getting back at redheads. You know, it's ridiculous. The guy that, you know, just some random person with red hair is not responsible. So how was that justice? But see, in the social justice, they see tribalism and group dynamics and sacrifices, and you need a blood sacrifice to atone the sins. And with the left, even though they're not really religious in a traditional sense like Christianity, in fact, they hate Christianity, they hate God, but they still have a lot of the Christian doctrine, but they've kind of inverted it. They don't have like redemption and forgiveness and God. They just have basically pagan sacrifices. So in order to atone our sins of racism for hundreds of years, we need to shed the blood of some innocent person. And even if this police officer is innocent and didn't murder George Floyd, he still needs to be sacrificed. This is the way these people think. We see it in other things too, like this call for reparations for slavery. A ridiculous concept, because there's no black in America who's ever been a slave. I'm not against reparations if it affects you personally. And what I mean by that, and that's traditional justice. So if you were wronged by someone, let's say the government wronged you, then you're able to get compensation from the government. Let's say that this city here, one of their vehicles ran into my car and damaged my property, then I need to be compensated for their negligence. But it wouldn't be justice for if they smash my car and then like 200 years down in the future, my ancestor is able to, you know, sue the city. That's just ridiculous because there's no connection there. But see, in social justice, they see everything in tribalism and everyone trying to get back with each other. And it's never ending. There's always just a blood feud because then you attack one of the members of their tribe and they get mad, they attack a member of your tribe, and then retaliation, you attack, just goes back and forth. It's a really primitive concept. Most primitive tribes have this concept, and that's why they're always violent and they never progress. But Western man has risen above that and said, no, we're not going to do this blood sacrifice. We're just going to look at the individual to see if he's guilty or not. But sadly, in America, in the West, we are regressing from Western civilization. We're doing more something like an African civilization where it's very tribal, a lot of blood sacrifices, very primitive. That's the way we're going into America, and it's a shame. I can't predict what the jury will do. I don't know how they pick the jury. A lot of these juries are very racially biased, so if there's a lot of blacks on the jury, they'll probably want to do the blood sacrifice. They don't care about the evidence. So it'll be interesting to see. We saw that with like the OJ case. It's like they wanted to get him off because he's part of their tribe. And this is another reason, by the way, that diversity and multiculturalism can't work. Because instead of looking at things objectively, people put in these concepts of social justice and they do it based on what's good for their tribe. Talk to you guys later.